Okay, so I'd like to begin each speech every time with a short thank you. So thank you for having me here. Thank you for letting me speak my truth. I think it's very important not to restrict people like me that want to talk about surrogacy in the way I will be speaking about it. So today I come to you proudly as a spokesperson of the Casablanca Declaration. This declaration wishes the universal abolishment of surrogacy. The Casablanca Declaration is going to be, I think, and I do believe, essential in the moments that we are going to live in the next few years concerning surrogacy, as it will be a toolbox that states will be able to use to abolish surrogacy in their own country. And the declaration also provides a very, very simple text, you have it in front of you, that can be used as an international convention for the abolishment of surrogacy. Surrogacy in the world has been the center of many, many discussions recently. We've heard about it in all its shapes, its forms, its names. And I'm gonna start my speech with talking a bit about my story, and then I'm going to explain to you why I am advocating so harshly against surrogacy today. So I'm Olivia, I'm 32 years old. I'm married, mother of 3 children. I was born from surrogacy in Louisville, Kentucky, back in 1991 in the United States. So I was born via traditional surrogacy, as you explained. Unfortunately, it's less common today. I mean, fortunately, it is less common today, but it still is quite common, for example, in America and in the UK especially. My parents personally never told me that I was born via surrogacy, so this has been hidden from me all my life. But I have to say that in my gut feeling, in my instinct, in my mind, I knew something was off from the very beginning, from the very first instance of my life, the very first memories. And these questions kept on coming, and I mean, I had elements that brought to me, that were in front of me, sorry, that showed me that I wasn't born from my mother. And so at 17 years old, I opened up Google and I Googled Louisville, Kentucky, and I found the first thing that popped up, because I was looking for adoption, IVF, but the first thing that popped up was a surrogate agency. And that's kind of when all the puzzle in my head clicked in, and from then on, you have to understand that I told everyone that I was born from surrogacy. My parents, not my parents, sorry, those were the only people that I didn't tell. But I told my friends, I told my doctors, I told my husband, I told my in-law, I told everyone. And unfortunately, I didn't confront my parents because of this huge conflict of loyalty I had towards them. And I was frightened of their reaction. My mother-in-law, so my husband's mother, she very kindly and very lovingly gifted me with a DNA test when I was 30 years old, so 2 years ago, because she knew and she saw me battle. I was with my husband for like 8 years at the time, and she knew. She's been following me for 8 years. She saw how much it affected me not to know where I came from, not to know what half of my blood was made up of. She saw me also struggle when I was pregnant with my first child. I gave birth to my daughter, and I didn't know what 25% of her genes were. So, I mean, she saw me struggle with depression. She saw me struggle with myself. And you have to understand that not knowing where I came from caused me a lot of mental difficulties. I struggle with bipolar disease, struggle with depression, but I also had issues with drugs, I had issues with alcohol, and I also had, I mean, unfortunately, I also tried to take my life a few times. So this DNA test would eventually show that in my ethnic background, I had no French blood, because my commissioning mother is French, and that was the first, kind of relief. I just felt so happy, and so, I mean, because I thought I was crazy for 30 years. And then on this DNA test, you scroll down and you can see that I was connected to a cousin. So what they do is that they take your DNA, they extract it, and then they compare it in the database with other people that have taken the test. So I was matched to a cousin, who then put me in contact with my half-brother, who then put me in contact with my half-sisters, and then I was in contact with my biological mother, so my surrogate in my case. So why is it today that I'm advocating with such conviction, with such harshness sometimes, the exact process that brought me in the world? Why am I not a good little girl, and thank God for surrogacy that brought me to the world, and why am I not thanking my commissioning parents that I am here today? Well, simply because I'm a child born from surrogacy, so I know how much it can affect the child, since I grew up being one, of course. But I also know that it can affect a woman. As I am a mother, I am also a woman. And I support the abolition of surrogacy worldwide today for many reasons, but basically just because it goes against the rights of women and children. So I'm going to start by listing the reasons why I'm against surrogacy. I'm going to give a child's perspective. I'm going to give a few points. And then I'm going to go on to why I'm against surrogacy as a woman. In my first, on the top level, the first reason why I'm against surrogacy in a child's perspective starts before the conception of the child, at the signature of the contract between a surrogate and the commissioning parents. So we are placing, literally, in the middle of a contract, a child that is to be created and then abandoned at birth. So we are commodifying the child, making it a product that is given away at birth. We are also putting a price tag on a human being, giving the child this value. So in commercial surrogacy, this price is actually quite well known, but as you said very well, in altruistic surrogacy, even if there isn't supposed to be money exchanged between the commissioning parents and the surrogates, there's always a price around the surrogacy. There's the IVF, there's the agency fees, the lawyers, there's their travel expenses, they're huge amounts of money, and then there's also the expenses that are reimbursed to the surrogate. Sometimes it's, I don't know, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times the minimum wage in her own country. The rent, the clothes, the food, the cell phone bills, everything is paid. And so she lives freely, if I may say, financially, for 9 months. So first, I have to say that in both surrogacies, commercial and altruistic, there is always a contract in which a little human being is being placed in the middle of a contract and treated as a product to be handed over once it's finished. So for me, that's the first thing that hurt me, knowing I was exchanged for a check, knowing I was worth a certain amount of money, knowing I was a product created, cultivated, sold, and bought. And for a very long time, this has tortured me, that I knew that I was worth, in my head, a lot of money. That my commissioning parents also put in a lot of money for me, to have me. And so I had this conflict of interest, this loyalty that I kind of owed them for being alive. So it took me 31 years to speak out to what I think publicly about surrogacy because of this. And this is, I'm making just a little small phrase towards the children that are today surrogate-born children who are 10 years old, 12 years old, maybe 15, maybe 18. At that age, I would never have spoken out, ever, 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 because I knew that the moment I started speaking out about surrogacy, I would break the loyalty that I had towards my parents. Well, that false loyalty, but that loyalty that I owed them. And today, I spoke about it. I mean, I speak about it openly now, and I'm paying that price. I unfortunately don't speak to my parents anymore, but thankfully I have my own family now, my husband, my children. And without them, I very honestly would have put an end to my life a long time ago. The second reason why I'm against surrogacy for their child is for what happens during the pregnancy, during the surrogacy. May the child be biologically linked to its surrogate mother or not, trust me, it absolutely doesn't matter. The only person that baby in the womb will be looking for is the woman that grew him for 9 months. His mother, because I do believe that the mother is the one that gives birth to the child. It's not the case in every country, but I think it is. Because if it wasn't the mother, if they weren't mothers, why would these mothers have to waive their parental rights even if they were just incubators, as some pro-surrogacy people call them? So this baby will learn to know his or her mother during the whole 9 months. He or she will listen to mommy's voice. He will eat what she's eating. He will hear her heartbeat. He will smell her. He will he will crave that woman when he is going to get out of the womb. He's going to want that particular woman. It's primal, it's animal, and we are meant to be brought up by the women that carry us. Third reason why I'm against surrogacy for the children is for what happens at birth, and I have 2 points in this. So the day baby should be coming into the world to meet his mother, this baby is ripped away and to be placed in the arms of complete strangers. So we are purposely, and I emphasize this, purposely letting mothers abandon their children, waiving their parental rights on them for the desires of full-grown adults to procreate. We are purposely recreating the primal wound that adoptees feel for the desires of adults. We are inflicting the syndrome of abandonment on children in their first seconds of their lives for the selfish needs of a family. And these babies, they will feel a void during their lives, the emptiness of having lost a mother. And let me tell you that unfortunately, that abyss, it will never be filled, and that's by personal experience. Not letting a child be at birth with his mother the day it is born is not in the best interest of the child. So let's bring this back to my own story for a few minutes. I'm actually 32 years old, and during my entire life, I've been trying to fill the exact void I was talking about. By drugs, by alcohol, by buying a ton of animals, thinking that naively it would fill that emptiness, that abyss that I was feeling. And that abyss was so deep that I truly believe I felt like I was bleeding out. It took me 32 years to understand and trying to stop feeling that emptiness with the help of a psychologist and a psychiatrist. I found my biological mother with a DNA test, and I consider myself very lucky to have had that opportunity, to be honest. And I had a conversation with her on that subject. One of the very first questions I had for her was, what happened on the very moments we were separated at birth? What did she feel? What happened? What was the situation? And she explained to me very clearly, because she remembers this very, very vividly. So I was taken away from her at birth. I didn't get to do skin to skin with her. I didn't get to do anything with her. She taken away, put in a basket, cleaned. And she says that she remembers very vividly that I had turned my little head and that I looked straight towards her. I was looking for my mother. I was looking for my mother. We look for our mothers at birth. I was looking for that mother that carried me for 9 months. So then I was put into the arms of my commissioning mother. My commissioning mother asked if she wanted to hold me, if my mother wanted to, my biological mother, my surrogate, wanted to hold me. And my biological mother said no. She refused because she says that she would never have let me go if she had held me. So I never had skin to skin with her, never had her milk, never had to smell her, never had to hear her. I was left with strangers that I didn't know. And that, I think, was when I was hit with the syndrome of abandonment that followed me after all my life, that I'm still struggling to deal with today. There's a second thing that I want to emphasize, and I think this is important today to speak about it, a horrible thing that happens at birth. At birth, we fake the identity of the surrogate child. We create a false birth certificate on which is written that the commissioning parents are our real parents. And our real birth certificate is taken away from us. Our identity is hidden from us, stolen. So to apply this to my story, I have a birth certificate on which throughout my entire life, it's written that I was born from my commissioning mother, with whom I share absolutely, of course, no blood. Throughout my entire life, I was told I was made up of French and Swiss blood, when really I'm made up of American and Swiss blood, with much Lithuanian and Norwegian origins, I went to find out. So here I was with a fake paper, faking my own origins, thinking that these kinds of papers could not be falsified. And that was hard, because throughout my childhood, I really thought when I saw that paper that that was the truth. And I didn't know that these papers could be falsified. We ignore the fact that the children have the right to know where they come from. Surrogate-born children very often don't know who birthed them, who carried them, what their genes are composed of. This is once again not in the best interest of the child. I would like to remind you that international laws that protect children, in fact, have the right to know their origins. And according to Article 7 of the UN Convention of Rights of the Child, children also have the right to know and be cared for his or her parents. I really want to emphasize today that children have rights, but there is absolutely no right to have a child. None. It doesn't exist. In every case of surrogacy, whether it's gestational or traditional, we don't think about the child. We only think about the desires of adults to have children. In every case of surrogacy, we are asking the child to make the huge sacrifices for the desires of adults. I mean, I don't know about you, but I do believe that in a world that is just, we must protect the most vulnerable. In a society, when a society starts to demand the most vulnerable to make the sacrifices for the strongest, it's not just, it's not right, and we know that something's wrong. So now moving on to the reasons why I oppose surrogacy as a woman. I'm a woman, I'm a very proud feminist. I love women's rights, really. I'm very passionate about it. And I can only be against surrogacy for all the horrible things it brings about for women. And I'm particularly, once again, sensitive to the condition of surrogate mothers. So let me be clear. First, every single woman on this earth has infinite beauty, dignity, and deserves the respect and good living conditions. The surrogacy market is based on the financial needs of certain women, and a woman can never, ever be considered as a means of production, reduced to only her reproductive capacities. Second point, surrogacy is a form of violence against women because it exploits their ability to have children by putting them under physical, economic, and psychological pressure. And we all mask this under the beautiful disguise of consent in a contract. But in surrogacy, can we really talk about consent when money is involved? What is consent when some women must choose between being a surrogate, having food on their table, their rent being paid, or be broke with no money, left to be living in the streets, or worse, become a prostitute to survive? Surrogacy thus leads to the exploitation and coercion of women who are economically and socially vulnerable and have to become surrogate mothers in order to survive out of financial desperation. Even in so-called altruistic, and I hate that term, I have to say, I absolutely hate it because there is no altruistic surrogacy, big amounts of fees are reimbursed towards the surrogates. So there is always an exchange of money in every single case. And I would love to see if we start taking away the money totally. We're not reimbursing anything, not even the clothes, nothing, zero. If women would be here and would align and get into line to give up their babies, to deal with the hormones, because we forget, but these women are putting huge amounts of hormones inside of their bodies, and if they would be willing freely to go through 9 months of pregnancy. So I see that there's a lot of women over here. Maybe you're all mothers. I would think so. Pregnancy isn't easy. It's difficult. It's hard. And I do not believe that if we take away the money, these women would be putting themselves through 9 months of pregnancy. Third reason why I'm opposed so strongly from a women's rights perspective is that the obligations to which a woman are subjected in a surrogacy contract would be considered illegal in any jurisdiction in a democratic regime. I'm not sure if you have all read these contracts or the people that are looking at us have read contracts, but these women are treated as slaves in the contracts. They have to sleep for a certain amount of hours, they have to drink, they can't drink coffee, for example, in the morning. They can't go to the hospital without permission of the commissioning parents, and they can't even have intimate relationships with their husbands if they have some. If they have one, sorry, not some. That's not good. I have an example of this, a very good example that I've seen in Jennifer Law's videos. Jennifer Law is a very, very big advocate, and I strongly advise you to follow her on social media and YouTube if you can. She's very well known in the USA for her incredible work, founder of the Center of Bioethics and Culture Network. And she shows that in many cases, mothers lived living hell throughout her videos and even died during the pregnancies. So I wonder how many women are going to die in surrogacy for people to understand that this is horrible. I'm going to take the example of Brittany, who was a surrogate mother used by 2 commissioning parents in the USA, and Jennifer got to interview her. Brittany unfortunately got cancer during her surrogacy, and she had to get treatment for her cancer. And in this case, what was horrible was that she got cancer and she needed treatment, and unfortunately the commissioning parents went to all of the hospitals, all of the doctors that she was in contact with, and they went and they wanted to threaten them with a lawsuit if they were to administer her the medication. So Brittany had to get lawyers involved. She had to, she had to find a hospital that would take her, and she did, thankfully. So her life was saved. But we see here how the commissioning parents can think that because they're paying a lot of money and they have signed a contract, they can take control and possession of this woman's body as the product inside of their womb is theirs. The commissioning parents of Brittany, they were willing to risk this woman's life in order to have a baby. I don't know if you can measure the impact and the importance of this, but it's horrible. And this is just one example, because I don't have the time to show you all the examples, but what happens to these women is just terrible. And once again, I strongly recommend you to follow Jennifer Lahl on her YouTube page. My final point on why surrogacy needs to stop for women is the fact that statistically speaking, surrogacy pregnancies are at high risk. There is a higher risk that a woman and her baby can die, for example, during the pregnancy. Many surrogates have died during the pregnancy, like I was saying. So we are making women take risks for their own lives, for their future health, only to satisfy some selfish needs to have a child at any price. And as of today, I am not aware of any statistics, studies on how the enormous amount of hormones that we inject into surrogates or egg donors, for example, hormones that are necessary, of course, for the surrogacy to work. We don't have these statistics. We don't have these studies. No fertility clinic has been kind enough to show us the effects of these hormones on these women. If these women are more prone to develop cancers later on in life, for example. And you may ask why? Why? I mean, it's their duty. They're doctors. They're supposed to look at this. Well, money. That's the reason. I mean, if people really started investigating on how much we are destroying these women, and if these women knew exactly what they were going to be they were about to submit their bodies to, then it would simply end surrogacy. A lot of money is made on the backs of these women and children, letting human trafficking legal in many countries as if it were normal, just to satisfy the couple's desires to have children. There is nothing, and I really want to emphasize on the fact that there is nothing that justifies the use of surrogacy. This market of women and children has become global, and we must end to it to protect the women and children. I want to be clear on three very important points. One is that there is no right to have a child. Once again, I'm very sad for infertile couples that they can't satisfy their desire to have children. I think of them. But their desires cannot be placed above the rights of children and women. I don't blame people for using surrogacy. I blame the world, the system that permits surrogacy when it should simply just not exist. I blame the countries that let surrogacy be legal, or the countries that close their eyes on this human trafficking. States must start taking responsibility and make laws banning surrogacy and also banning their citizens from going abroad to buy a child and come back with it in their country. Second point I want to make is that I often hear from pro-surrogacy advocates that surrogacy clinics treat infertility. That's their big argument. But they do not. What they do is that they use women, they sell babies, but they don't treat infertility because once the couples leave with the baby, they're still infertile. So it doesn't make any sense. Medicine, doctors, they're here to heal, they're here to treat, they're here to mend. They are not here to make a commerce out of children and women. Third point is that there is no ethical surrogacy possible. There is no ethical way of selling children. There is no ethical way to rent a woman's body. Like there is no ethical way to regulate slavery. There is no ethical way to regulate the selling of organs. I mean, this is common sense. It fascinates me every time that we have to repeat this. Surrogacy has to stop now, and I do believe that the Declaration of Casablanca can be used to bring up discussions between countries on starting a draft on an international convention to abolish surrogacy. We must do it for the children, we must do it for the women. They are too sacred to be used and abused in the way surrogacy works today. I and Bernard had the chance to talk to Dr. René Friedman, who was the first doctor in France to have done an IVF, on women. Dr. Friedman is a very big activist against surrogacy. He's one of the fathers of modern gynecology. He fought on the side of infertile couples, but now he fights on our side. He fights on the side of people that are against surrogacy, that wish to abolish surrogacy. He says, and I'm going to quote him, "Surrogacy is not understanding the link between the woman and the child she is carrying, and above all, not seeing the violence done to women. There's a kind of ethical, ideal surrogacy that does not exist, to which advocates refer. And then there's the reality of what is happening in Vietnam, of what's happening in India, what's happening in Eastern Europe, where women's bodies are commercialized." So he clearly says that unethical surrogacy does not exist. He has never seen it as a doctor himself. And I think his word is very important because he fought 40 years for infertile couples, and now he realizes that surrogacy is just not possible. And let me finish my speech with what happened to us recently. So Bernard talked about it a little bit, but I want to give you a bit of background information. Back in the beginning of December, it was brought to my attention, this horrible case of Ana Obregón, who's this famous Spanish actress who's 68. And she used, and I have a hard time wrapping my head around this, she used her deceased son's sperm to buy a child via surrogacy in Florida. This was horrible to me, and it triggered a lot of emotions, I have to say, because this baby, this baby girl, who is now 2, I believe, or not 2, maybe a little less than 2, she is going to be brought in the world while she has no mother, because her surrogate is gone, her egg donor is gone. She has no father because he's dead. But worse than that, on her birth certificate, and this is very important, that grandmother is going to be put as her mother. So can you imagine the state of the child that comes into the world? My mother's my grandmother's my, you know, like, it doesn't make any sense. And Radio Cope, who's a radio of bishops of Spain, let this actress come on their show, talk about surrogacy like it was a beautiful gift. And this truly infuriated me. I think it also infuriated Bernard as well. Because even as an atheist, and I'm an atheist, the Catholic Church I knew was against surrogacy. So I, with the help of Bernard, decided to write to the Pope asking him in a letter to take a public stance against surrogacy. In this story, I told him about my story. I was very open about my atheism. And he didn't respond to me directly, of course, but on the 8th of January 2024, in his speech to the diplomatic corps, he called for a commitment from the international community to ban surrogacy. And that is exactly what we are asking in the Declaration of Casablanca. I will be meeting with him in Rome on the 4th of April, hopefully with Bernard next to me. And I hope together we can find a way to start drafting an international convention and pushing this at a state level. I'm going to finish with a quote by Renate Klein, who is an Australian author, feminist, because I am a feminist as well, but a well-known surrogate advocate. And she wrote a very brilliant book, which is called Surrogacy, a Human Rights Violation. And she says in this book, the whole surrogacy industry is so deeply problematic on so many fronts that it is hard to understand why anyone with a social justice conscience could support it. I know that there's a great deal of money involved in surrogacy. I know that we have agencies, we have lawyers, we have doctors, we have IVF clinics, we have also pharmaceutical companies. So I know that this battle will be hard, but it is worth it, and I know we can win. So today I'm in Croatia because I'm counting on this incredible, strong, beautiful country to play an important role on an international level to bring countries in the process of elaborating an international convention using this Casablanca Declaration to abolish surrogacy, and thus constructing a surrogacy-free world for our children. But I'm also counting on Croatia as a country to sign the declaration. I'm also counting on Croatia as a country to take a strong national stance against surrogacy, not just to ban it, but to ban their citizens from going abroad and bringing back a child. And it is important that we do not let any room for interpretation in the text of laws. So let's abolish slavery, but I think that was a lapsus. Let's abolish surrogacy worldwide, and I hope that we can push this Casablanca Declaration at a state level. Thank you.